lot of the spirit of this whole day is about play. It's about empowering children. We saw how television is becoming from push to bottoms up, flipping things upside down. And our generation has to figure that out and make money, make a living. There's one app company that's been leading the way. And if you don't know who Toca Boca is, it's up there with Minecraft in terms of any kid at the bus stop. And so we're very fortunate to have Jens de Pedro from Toca Boca here in the house in Vegas, making another first. Jens, come on up. So we're going to hear some secrets.
My car didn't show up, so everything's
we're going to hear some of the secret ingredients of what makes Toca Boca successful in the app age. And you're mic'd up, right?
Right,
so
right.
Good.
I don't need that mic.
All right, I'll switch over to your...
I'm on the mic, and the mic is on me.
It's got an impact on me.
So, yeah, I come from Toca Boca. I'm a play designer.
Hopefully people enjoyed it.
Warren, will you do the slides
I
for
got
me?
it, yep.
All right. We don't make games. Play designer is usually what you would call a game designer, but we make what we call digital toys, meaning there's no rules, there's no points, no winning, no losing. It's just about playing. And as you can hear, I come from Scandinavia. People often hear that accent and ask if I am from Sweden. And I say, yeah, yes I am. Occasionally I get the question, not as often, what's going on in Scandinavia? You guys are so incredibly successful in making things for children, right? There's Lego, now the #1 toy company in the world, just past Mattel. Minecraft, I don't need to talk to their success. And Toca Boca, I'll show you a slide in a minute if you don't know about us. How many have heard about Toca Boca? Okay, good, that's a good amount of people. So this is my name, and if you want to tweet anything I said, or you can use these handles to refer. Yeah, it might seem a little audacious to have Toca Boca up here with Lego and Minecraft. But for those of you who haven't heard of us, we're really big in the kids app space. On New Year's Eve, we had 10 apps in the top 30 US paid kids iPad. That category. I'm the play designer behind the concept of 5 of these apps. Toca Hair Salon, Toca Kitchen.
Oh, you know what?
Toca Train, and a couple more.
Oh, man, I think it was great.
But what is the secret? The secret lies in this statement from Bjork. She once said, I tried to organize freedom. How Scandinavian of me. And that's really what these systems are. They're powerful systems of freedom.
At the end, they were going to take questions.
Systems in which you can do pretty much anything.
You know what, it doesn't matter.
The actual name of Lego Inc. is Lego System Inc. That was the original product that is now just known as Lego. And Minecraft is also just a system. It was inspired by Marcus Notch Persson playing freely in the forest as a child. And so he built this game that just auto-generates, right? The landscape just goes on, and you can do whatever. It's very open-ended. And that's what we do at Toca Boca too. We try to give kids experiences that are as open-ended as possible and put powerful tools in their hands. And really the limit of what you can do is their imagination. But they're all products for kids too, right? You could explain a lot of this success by saying in Scandinavia, that's highly technological. We respect design a lot. But these are also products for kids. And I believe the reason that we're so good at kids' products, maybe I think we are, is that we see children a little better. And I don't mean that they're not blurry, but they are actually closer to us, not physically, but in status. Any society is going to be somewhat hierarchical, but Scandinavian societies are a little more egalitarian. So we are closer to each other as citizens. And that has consequences for how we understand and look at each other. So I'll give you an example of a consequence like this. A majority of people in Sweden consider themselves feminists. In the parliament, 5 out of 7 parties call themselves feminists. It's only the Christian Democrats and the anti-immigration party that won't take this word on themselves. But that, I think, is because we are a little bit closer, and it's a little bit less about that struggle of power and pride between the genders. There's another thing that goes on in any human hierarchy, and it's that everyone is looking up, right? I'm here on stage because I've been part of making something successful, and you want to hear what I have to say. If you remember in high school, when you're a freshman, you knew names of a lot of the seniors. Whereas when you're a senior, the freshmen, it just seemed like a mass of kids. You know, you weren't that interested in them. And it's because everyone wants to have more status and power, and that makes people above you interesting and those below you not so interesting. This, as a side note, is also why male characters work well in children's media, right? Harry Potter. Boys are interested in other boys, and girls are interested in girls and boys because subconsciously they know where they are in this hierarchy. There's one more thing going on in any social hierarchy, and that the ones who are currently at the top, whoever they are going to group together and create ideas about other groups of people. And they're going to try to keep them down with these ideas and make it seem natural that they are on top. And you can group people any way you want to, by religion, ethnicity, BMI, and there's names for all of these things: sexism, ageism. But 2 of these arrows here have the same name, and that's ageism. Old people and young people share the same word for the ideas that work against them. But we need to have words for these separately because it's very different to not be able to get a job because you're 58 or to not be listened to at preschool because you're 4. There is a word for that when it comes to young people, and that word is adultism. So I would like to define that as the idea that grown-ups know best and kids should do what grown-ups say. That might intuitively feel right to a lot of you because we grew up hearing this. This idea is well and alive in pretty much all over the world. And I'll give you an example. How many of you are familiar with this book? Have you come across it in the... Yeah, a couple people. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list for a couple years. I think it's currently number 4 in the family category. And let me read you a passage from it. All the kids from daycare are in dreamland. The froggy has made his last leap. Hell no, you can't go to the bathroom. You know where you can go? The F to sleep. Now, my wife, she thinks this is funny. She's an American. She knows it's wrong, but she just can't stop from laughing, right? Because we've all felt that frustration. But for me, I don't know, I just feel like it's too disrespectful of children. It only has the adult perspective. There's also a follow-up book, You Need to Effing Eat. It's number 5 right now. And I tell you, these books would not have been published in Scandinavia, and if they were, they would not have made it onto the top of the charts. And the reason is because I think we are a somewhat more childish society. Now, any idea that's pushing people down has a counter movement, whether conscious or not. So if feminism is the radical idea that women are people, childism is the radical idea that children are people. And that means we need to talk to each other and see things from each other's perspective when we interact. Let me give you a couple of examples from my native country of why I think what could indicate that we have a little bit more of the children's perspective. When I was there this summer, I came across this pamphlet which advertises a free parenting class, 10 hours for parents, paid for by the Stockholm municipalities, with a testimonial from a father of 2 children, 44 years old. And it says, "It is now easier to get along and compromise." Now, I can't imagine there's a lot of countries where a publicly paid for parenting class would be advertised this way, because from an adultist point of view, compromise is losing, right? Sweden is a little bit more egalitarian in that sense. We also trust children a little bit more. In school in Sweden, it's one of the few countries that, along with Denmark and Norway, where school starts at age 7. Basically no academics before that. There's no grades until you're 12 years old. And after-school programs are free for everyone, and it's about play and socializing, not about taking classes and learning skills. So we trust children a little bit more to learn. Still, adultists, you can still go through school, 12 years, no one asks you what you're interested in learning. Happens all the time, right? But just a little bit more. We also understand, there's some indications that we understand that children need to play. So when Stockholm was growing really fast in the 70s, the city planners made a rule for themselves that children shouldn't have more than 400 meters to the closest playground, at least 90%. And if you walk through Stockholm today, you'll see that they kept to their promise. And this is really essential to understand about children. Because I think that if we really look at children, we will see that they're basically no different from grown-ups. Any difference in a child, I think, can be explained by the fact that they have less power and less experience in our society. There's one fundamental difference, though, and is that they need to play. They'll tell you if you ask them. Play, you say, because we don't understand play. We just see it as a byproduct of having too much energy or something. But play is fundamental to being a mammal. Play is really self-motivated practice of life skills. Unlike insects or birds, we don't have a lot of knowledge programmed into us. We're not hardwired like that. But we come with a mechanism that is play, and it's what makes us want to learn. So play really is the urge. The urge to play is to learning what hunger is to eating. It's that fundamental. Okay, JP, I get it. Systems of freedom, play is important. How do we make better products? So I've made this chart for how I believe that children's products come to fruition, like what can motivate us, because I want to go that deep. So you can either come with altruistic motives or egoistic motives. You can have a coercive mindset or consensual mindset, and I'll show you what kind of thinking can lead to what kind of product. So if you start thinking that you know what's best for kids, and you have a coercive mindset, you'll come up with something like school, right? I don't care what you think, this is what you're doing. The app space isn't coercive like that because you download whatever you want to, but still, adults guide a lot of the purchases, so people make these kinds of products. Now, have you ever met a 4- or 5-year-old who didn't know their shapes or colors and suffered from it? You learn it no matter what. It's really a superfluous product. You know, if someone wants to make it, I don't think it's that essential. Now, if you have a coercive mindset and you come with egoistic motifs, you'll ask yourself, what do I want to get? And if you were out about on town, you'd be stealing candy from people, just snatching it. But if you're making apps, you might make a Candy Crush or something, right? It's just built to maximize that revenue. Or you might make something like strawberry shortcakes, dessert Shop app. I don't know if you've tried it. It's a free app. And if you make, maybe on the third dessert, strawberry shortcake will tell you that her friend Orange Blossom wants the orange straw. Now that straw costs 99 cents. It works exactly the same way as the green straw. So of course you take the green straw. And strawberry shortcake tells you, and this is word by word, you didn't fill that order. You can keep that dessert all to yourself. Now, I couldn't believe it. Yeah, if American Greetings, Budge Studios, you made this app. If you're here, if you come up in the question and answer session and explain what was the thinking here. My daughter was really upset, and when there's got to be better ways, right? So if you have egoistic motives, but you're not going to force your product on anyone, you'll ask yourself, what do I want to give children? And the equivalent of that would be, your uncle giving you his stamp collection. You never expressed interest in stamps. Oh, please order these. Oh, happy birthday. Right? It's the clueless gift. And actually, that's what Minecraft was, because it was never meant for children. It was just meant for other independent game developers. And Marcus Notch Person was really happy when he had sold 100. But I think that's a good place to start, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Now, if you have a consensual mindset and altruistic motives, you'll just ask children, what do they need? It's very hard to create something original this way, but you can create something that works, like YouTube for Kids, which we're going to hopefully see soon. I'm very excited about this. You're not putting much thought into the content. You're just looking at making it work, right? Now, the best thing to do, if you believe in childism, if you have that mindset, you'll be moving between these two, because you really want to give something that comes from your heart. And that's what Toca Boca is. We are a creator-driven company. You can't come up with stuff like Hair Salon and Toca Kitchen and Toca Lab unless you give your creatives a lot of space and believe that they're going to work it through. If you see that spark in their eyes, they might not know exactly where they're going, but they're going to deliver on something. And then you can come back and make it work. Work on that interface. Make sure that kids really understand it. So, let's build those systems of organized freedom that Björk talks about. And if you, like me, believe in childism, you'll want to give children the freedom to play, because that's what they want and that's what they need. Thank you very much.
I want to say that when you create an open-ended toy, such as you described, a lot of times when you show it to parents, they look at it and they say, but what does it do? They're not used to a toy where you experiment with it and play with it. They're used to a toy where it tells the child how to play.
Right.
Do you have any ideas on how you'd market a more open-ended toy? I mean, like Lego obviously have been around forever, so people already know that's what you do. But when you try to bring a new toy like this to market, it's just really hard because parents, their mind is not in an open-ended toy.
Mm-hmm. I think you need to put it in the hands of kids. Just find a way to do that. And they'll tell each other. It's really two ways of approaching it. We heard, it is important to get the parents on board, and we work that way too. You want them to be your friend also. But the way we think is we make the best possible product for children. And occasionally you throw in something for a grown-up if they read a text or something, but it's all about having kids tell each other that this is the best app that's out there.
The other thing that Toca Boca does is they put the play team in the app. So the philosophy, if you want to read about it, it's there, and there is a philosophy, and it's also guiding the store and other things that they're doing to monetize the whole process. And what you're seeing at Toca Boca is a work in progress from both a business perspective as well as a production perspective, which is great that we have their brains right here. But a lot to learn from what they're doing.
Yep.
What are you most excited about new technology?
Renee's asking, what are you most excited about the new technology?
I like the idea of bigger screens and what that might mean. But I'm not that techy, like I don't follow tech so much. It's more like people put tech in my hand. It's like, how can we do something fun with this? And then I might see the functions for it.
Bigger screens in terms of touch screens, or bigger screens in terms of?
Yeah, in terms of touch screens and gesture and a more immersive world. I'm a little scared of 3D, of virtual environment, virtual reality, sorry. Yeah, I haven't tried it yet. Maybe if I tried it, I would feel it's great. But to me, it feels like it's too much. But maybe I'm just old school. You had a question too, yeah.
Regarding the freedom to play, I very much identify with that. And I notice, though, when I leave my kid by herself, her freedom to play sometimes comes up against the challenge of self-moderating her time and her sensibilities. And I'm wondering, you know, as I think about it, I rarely see games that suggest to the kids within the game space that, hey, you've been doing this for about 2 hours or stuff like that. Is there anything out there that addresses that?
I know there might be some apps with time limits, but yeah. Yeah, we've built sometimes into our apps to make it sort of like a loop, which gives you the thought of like, do I want to do this again? Where it's not just endless. And it also gives a parent or an adult a chance to be like, okay, once it's dark, then let's call it a day, you know, dark in the app. So that's a way that we've worked with sometimes. Yeah. Back, yeah.
That's Darren Carson's getting the work out there. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you. I guess my question would be, to what extent do you consider yourself an educational company as well? And what would you say would be the balance, if there is a balance in your view, between the open-ended play but also like explicit learning? I mean, maybe that might just be like an American perspective.
Yeah, no, it is an interesting question. I know our CEO gets that often, and he says, well, we're not an educational company, but you can learn things from our app still. You know, people are a little confused by that answer. I personally don't believe in education. I know that's a radical statement, but I really think that play is the only thing you need to be able to learn. I think 12 years is a really long time to learn what you need to learn to get ahead in life. A bunch of the stuff that we teach children in school, we say it's important. We say you have to know all of this to be successful, but we really mean is you have to learn all of this to get into college, and that's not the same thing as being successful by any means. Like, how many of you work with math on a daily basis? Yeah, a couple programmers, yeah. But you all took a ton of math, and that's incredibly ineffective. And you did it against your will a lot. I mean, whether you wanted to or not, and that's a terrible way to learn. Because at the point where you realize that you need math, you're already, you learned that you're not that good compared to other people, and maybe you just didn't have the interest at the time. So we ruin a lot of learning by forcing education on kids and by thinking of education and play and learning as separate things.
Jens, do you have any comment on the theories of Jean Piaget?
Not so many. I know that he saw the brain that develops in stages, and you know, I'm not so sure. I know that there's glitches in that. They say you can't jump the
disequilibration, the idea that the notion of the child as an active learner, because
right, yeah, no, and Vygotsky learned in that proximal zone of development,
exactly.
And you're ready for the next thing. Yeah, but educators take that to think that they need to put whatever is in front and force that onto kids. But educators don't know what kids are interested in because they never ask. So even if there is this zone of proximal development, it's not the right thing to just throw things in there. I'm getting a wave. Oh, from back here, yeah.
I have one more question. I have a 7-year-old who has been diagnosed as mildly autistic, but he's a whiz with Lego.
Yeah,
and I've heard that a lot of people that were geniuses have been also autistic. So I'm just wondering if you have any ideas on, that's a huge problem in America. Millions of kids are diagnosed with autistic, and I think we overdrug, kids. I'm just wondering if you have things that, ideas about how to engage kids that have been, labeled, mildly, autistic.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in that, but I know our apps are very popular with autistic children. I think it's because it lets them set their own pace. It doesn't throw things at them. It puts them in charge of their own experience. And I think that would be a great thing to take away for education as well, to have every child be able to set that pace at which they want to learn. And autistic kids, they can spend a lot of time, right, thinking about one thing. And I'm not an expert to say this, but that seems like, well, that's what they're interested in. Let them do that, unless you see that they're suffering from it. But
it's also a label that's quite thrown around, and it's hard to define what is and what isn't. And it might be useful to think about the number of geniuses like Einstein who would have been LD or learning disabled. All the labels. Yeah, and I'm an educator, so I can use those terms. I've used them. Yeah, one quick question and then keep it moving.
I was curious, do you guys, when you develop your apps, do you do a lot of kind of iterative cycles with either user testing, or I don't know if you'd call it play testing,
yeah.
Or do you guys tend to kind of make the thing the way that you think it should be and then release it?
No, we always play test a ton. We even play test, if we can, on paper, like a concept. Sometimes we'll just talk to children about that subject, see what they think about horses or hotels or whatever it might be. We do that a lot. And that's, we often get that question, and do you test on kids? To me, it's like, that's an adultist question. It's like, of course we do. We test on mountain goats. We test on, yes, they are users. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jens. It's great having you.